Welcome to Questions of Life. I'm Cath, I'm here with Donald.
Hello.
In our session today, we are discussing questions around identity. Enjoy our conversation. So I thought the first thing to do was to define identity. So I went to the dictionaries, and so the Cambridge Dictionary says identity. So it is who a person is, or the qualities of a person or group that make them different to others. Then the Oxford Dictionary, because you can't just have Cambridge without Oxford, can you? You know, I know you're a Cambridge man. The Oxford Dictionary, it says the characteristics determining who or what a person or thing is. So it's about the things that determine who we are, that gives us our identity. Now, there is a thing called the Big Eight. Now, I wasn't aware of this, but I have just discovered it. Apparently, there are 8 different areas that consciously or subconsciously the human race pull together to begin to build up their sense of identity. And I'm going to put you to the test, as always. You know, I like to have a little quiz with you. Can you name, do you think, any of the 8 from the Big 8, the things that, you know, go towards making up our identity? It's not necessarily Christian, it is just a global world thing.
Okay, I would guess.
Yep.
In no particular order.
Yep.
Race.
Yes, check. That's 1.
Religion.
2.
Gender.
3.
Sexuality.
4.
Job.
Socioeconomic status, I'll give you that. 5.
Okay. Your relationship status.
No.
Oh, okay.
Not on there. Keep going.
So like a mother or father, it doesn't.
It's not one of the Big 8.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
I think it is in society, but according to the experts, it isn't.
Okay. Your hobby, pastime, passion. Oh, okay, now I'm struggling. How many have I got? 5?
You got 5.
3 to go.
3 to go. Actually, I'll kind of give... no, I can't give you that, no. So one of them is age.
Okay.
Ability.
Right.
Okay. And then the one that we haven't got is ethnicity, which is slightly different to race. They would say race classifies people based on perceived physical characteristics.
Right.
Ethnicity relates more to culture.
Okay.
Such as sharing a common language, ancestry, national origin, or a variety of cultural beliefs.
Well, that shows how much I know. Shall we go home now?
No, I think it's really interesting because very often when you meet someone for the first time, they ask you your name, where do you come from? Very often, what do you do? And then there's an assumption, particularly for me, I think, being a woman of my age, I am 47 years of age, but the church on Sunday felt that, you know, over 100 people felt I didn't look 47. I look younger, just younger, pointing that out. But most people assume that I've got a family, that I've got children, that I'm married. They'll often ask me about my husband or my other half. Some people assume that you're my husband, which is just the most funny thing in the whole world.
That's
I know.
Disturbing.
Isn't it? Well, do you tell me? I don't know which one of us is more offended at that prospect, me. But there is this thing, isn't it? The immediate way to begin to work out who someone is, we ask you, where are you from? What do you do? That kind of builds up a picture of someone's identity. So Donald, to you, what would you say identity is? We've had the definitions in the Big 8. How would you put it?
Well, I think I'm no expert, so
Yeah.
this is, we're just exploring this together. I think that there are loads of descriptions that we are accurate about ourselves. And all of those 8, we all fit into all of those 8.
Yeah.
So every one of those we're a part of. We can't say, we've all got ethnicity, we've all got race, we've all of an age, we've all got a job or a non-job or we're retired or whatever it is. We've all in some sense. So identity isn't simply that description. It's which of those descriptions we choose as the defining and the most important. And there's 2 sort of our sides to that. In one side, it's what we think other people define us by. What of that list of things do other people think is the most important thing to us? And that can be a very damaging thought process where we're constantly worried about how others perceive us. And then on the other hand, it's how we perceive ourselves. So which of those things is the thing that we think is the most important? And that will then perhaps define some of our goals in life. It will define some of our priorities in life. It will define some of the things that we value. It will define how we feel about ourselves. The other part of it, and we'll perhaps unpack all of this, which I think is difficult, is that some people don't choose their identity in terms of the description about themselves. They choose it in terms of the tribe they want to belong to. So we human beings are tribal, and so what often I think is confusing is people choosing an identity because they like the feel or idea of other people who identify in that way, and they want to be associated with their tribe. Or equally, people reject an identity because they don't want to be associated with that group of people. And all of those things make it very complicated. For me, choosing an identity because of who you want to be like is not a very helpful road to go down. Allowing others to define your identity isn't a very good road to go down. So for me, it's about working out what really matters to us. What is the most important thing in our life? And let's let that be the thing that everything else feeds off and is defined by.
This is really important stuff, isn't it? Because I think if we get that slightly skewed, or if we go down a path that isn't us or isn't helpful, that affects so much about us. So as you say, it affects our choices, it affects our goals, it affects the way that we feel deep down inside about ourselves. In a few weeks, we'll do a session looking at self-worth. But I think identity, there is a knock-on into self-worth that actually, if we don't understand who we are, if we don't have a true identity in the sense that we're going to talk about this evening, that has huge implications for our mental well-being, for our emotional health, just for us as human beings being able to function in a way that's helpful. So this is really big and huge stuff. And it's in the media a lot at the moment. People seem to be searching and talking about this a lot. Why do you think it's out there now? Why are more and more people exploring it and talking about it?
I'm not an expert to say. I fear that we know that our part of the world is really suffering with lots of mental health issues and low self-esteem. We're unhappy. I think Western people are unhappy. And so there is this grasp and this search for, well, why am I unhappy? And one of the explanations that people are coming up with as to why I'm unhappy is I'm defining myself in the wrong way. I don't like the way other people have labeled me. I don't like the box other people have put me in. I don't like the expectations that other people have of me. And therefore, and that can be absolutely right and very painful if we are labeled by other people and it's not an accurate label and it's not a fair assessment of who we are. And so we're struggling to try and find out, well, who are we? What are we about? And so the search for identity, I think, is probably quite a godly search. It's a desire to say, well, what is really my purpose in life? What is the meaning of life? Why do I live? Who am I? What am I about? And those, in one sense, are eternal questions that people have asked for centuries. We're just using the word identity to as the word for that search. It's saying, who am I? Am I what other people say I am? If I'm unhappy, is it because I perceive myself in the wrong way, or others are perceiving myself in the wrong way? I think it's confusing because I'm not sure that a lot of the areas that people are choosing as identities are really the things I would want to say are the defining things about our humanity. And which perhaps we can unpack a bit more. But there's a problem when we define ourselves. Can I give you an example?
Go for it.
So there are, of those 8 things, all of those describe me. So if I was to say, firstly, say gender and age, I am, what am I?
An old man.
I'm an old man. Let's say I'm an old man. So if I define myself as an old man, if that's how I perceive myself,
Yep.
if that's how other people think of me, if it, as it were, I went around with a label that said old man,
Yep.
there are so many connotations with that I don't feel comfortable with. I don't want to consider myself as old. I'd like really to rephrase that as middle-aged, if that's okay with you. So you labelled me as old, but I would want to call myself middle-aged.
With both of those things, there are stereotypes, aren't there?
Yes. So the problem is I don't identify
Yeah.
with other people who would call themselves old men or middle-aged men.
Yes.
I don't feel I belong, and I don't want to feel I belong in that tribe. And so that's quite an unhelpful way of describing me. It feels painful. But it is true. I am a man, and I am getting towards old. But it's not how I see myself, and it's not what I would want everybody else to think. Who's Donald? Oh, he's an old man. Because the moment you say that, there are all kinds of other things that are coming into, or perhaps he's a bit confused, perhaps he's not very capable, perhaps he's quite...
Stuck in his ways.
Stuck in his ways.
That's what you'd think with an old person.
Yes, yeah. And so I would say, right, I want to change my identity. I don't want to have the identity of an old man. So maybe I would say, okay, well, let's choose another thing in my life. I am white British. Now, again, that's true.
Yep.
I am white,
Yeah.
I am British. I wouldn't use the word English because I'm of Scottish and slightly Irish heritage, but mostly Scottish. I'm far more Scottish than I am English. So I would always use the word white British.
Sorry, can I just interject at this point? Why do you support England in the football and not Scotland?
Because I'm confused.
Because you're not a stereotype.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I find nationalism, I find Scottish nationalism and English nationalism, both of them deeply uncomfortable, which is why I always want to call myself British. But actually, I don't feel comfortable with calling myself white British because to me, it feels a bit like Union Jack braces,
It's a
skinheads.
Yeah.
I've got short hair, so am I a skinhead? Am I some way colonial?
Yeah.
Am I in some way linked to white supremacy? Am I in some way believing that this is... that Britain should be white, and which I don't think for a moment. And again, it's a label and an identity that I would feel deeply uncomfortable if you said, who's Donald? Oh, he's that white British guy. That's, for me, got all kinds of tribal associations that I would want nothing to do with.
But that's the easiest, that's what we do as a human race. So the easiest thing for us to do is to look at someone and really, really quickly we make a value judgment and we place a label on them.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying you look like an old man, but, you know, you're middle-aged, you're white, you're skinhead, you're whatever.
Yeah.
And that in itself, wrongly in people's minds, we label you.
Yeah.
Straight away. Your identity is very quickly in someone else's mind founded. And that's really not helpful.
Yeah. And especially, so I'm going to get rid of that because
so
I don't
want
like...
to be labelled as that.
Don't
Absolutely.
like that label.
Yeah.
So we've got to try and find what is the label that best sums up what I aspire to and what are my values, what are my goals, without looking at everybody else and saying, well, I want to be the same as them. And that's, I think, a tricky but helpful exercise.
But are you saying in some ways you can choose your identity and in some ways you can't?
So I believe, I think, and I reserve the right to change my mind if you dissuade me of it, I can't change those 8 categories that describe me that you said.
Yep.
They are all facts.
Yep.
I can choose which of those is the one that is the most important to me and the one that shapes all the rest. I can't change the fact that I'm a man, but I'm not comfortable with what's all the labels of behavior that men are supposed to stick to, and all the things that are called masculinity and macho and all of that. And I'm deeply uncomfortable with male culture a lot of the time. So I don't choose my identity as being a man, but I am a man. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to choose that as the thing that everything else submits to, I guess.
Why do you think some people do? Why do you think some people are drawn to some of those things and it is the one thing they hold on to? Whether it is their race, whether it is their sexuality, whatever it might be, what draws somebody to that? Yes, that is my overarching thing.
I guess there are a number of things. Sometimes it's oppression and bullying and victimization and discrimination by other people, that because we are discriminated on those grounds, they've put that label on us and said it's a bad thing. Yep. And so the natural reaction is to say, I'm going to wear that label and it's a good thing. Yep. And I understand that completely. Where we are picked on or discriminated against because we're different to the other tribe, the other group, one reaction is to say, well, I resist that, and but in resisting it, we fall into almost the same trap of saying, well, that thing is defining me. So I think partly it's that. I think in other situations, it's just a search for meaning, and we're just longing to find out what we're about. Who are we? What is our drive in life? And when we do that, sometimes we're drawn to people in the media, or we come across it, who seem to have it together, and they say, this is my label. Sometimes I think this happens a lot with younger people. We choose the label of the people that we've attracted by, that we feel are the role models that we want to have. And I certainly would look back on my life and say that there were times when I tried to identify with people I admired, and so I would try and take on, but that wasn't really true to me. So sometimes I think it's that search for belonging. It's search for, where do I fit? Who am I? What am I about? Which is all understandable and not a bad thing in itself.
And those are the subconscious questions that we ask for the whole of our lives. We look for meaning, we look for a sense of belonging, we look for this sense of understanding, who am I, why am I on this earth, what was I put here to do, is there a purpose for me? We all have that as a human being. They're natural drivers, they're natural questions that we ask. But I suspect for many people, they're not asking those of Christianity, of God, and of a relationship with God. For a lot of people, is it in a relationship? Is it in my social status? Is it in my job? In so many other things? And part of that, as you've talked about, is because of the way that other people influence and impact our lives. So as a child, you might have the expectations of your parents. They might say, you're going to be, and this was never said of me, a musical prodigy. And so that is your label, that is what you're stuck as. Or actually, well, you're never going to make anything, you're not very intelligent, and that sticks with you, those kind of unhelpful labels. And so you look for meaning in other places. Yes. Which isn't great, and which is, again, why we shouldn't label and speak over children and other people in negative ways, because we have no idea of the damage and the way that they're held on to and the way that they drive people in a really unhelpful way. So talk to me about a helpful identity. You know, we've talked about all these things that we subconsciously and consciously look to for identity, and up to a point they're okay, but they shouldn't be the overarching thing. There's something far greater, far deeper, far more affirming and life-giving. Talk to me about that.
So I think a healthy identity is one that doesn't change in life circumstances. So let's just pick on that last one about social status. And very often, if as young people or children we've been put down, sometimes that creates a drive in us to succeed. And so our identity becomes our success. It becomes our house or our job or the car or the career that we have. I think a good identity still works when you're retired, and even still works in heaven. One of the problems is we're all going to retire, and we're all going to have changes in our life. And if our identity is wedded to either our age or it's wedded to our life situation, then we face a major midlife crisis is another thing, isn't it? It's a major problem when suddenly that which we thought defined us doesn't define us. So I think we need to be looking for something that is true to us in all seasons of our life.
And it's true to say that there is nothing wrong in having money, a job, a career. You know, people have served God and done great things through those things. So they're not wrong.
No.
It's how we hold that and how much of our esteem and our value and our identity comes through it.
Yeah. So I could describe myself as a clergyman. I could describe myself as professional, because apparently
What? Professional?
Yeah, because apparently in the professions, clergy is one of them.
Really?
I could define myself as a graduate.
Yeah, you are a graduate. I'll give you that.
I am a graduate.
Yeah.
So if I introduced myself or tried to get you all to see myself as those things,
Yes.
the problem is that actually that's a bit arrogant, and it's not really who I am. It's trying to put myself above somebody else. So a good identity shouldn't be squashing somebody else. It shouldn't be hurting somebody else. It should be what's good for all mankind. And it should not be rooted out of insecurity. If I said to you, my name's Donald, by the way, I've got a degree, you'd think there's something slightly wrong with him, isn't there?
But, okay, I agree with you. Out of left field, another question here. What about clergymen and women who constantly wear their dog collar? I mean, we're not going to get onto dog collars as such, but I
set
think...
me up. I don't wear a dog collar for that reason.
There's a time and a place for a dog collar, okay, for some people. So one of our previous pastoral ministers, he would wear a dog collar when he went into hospital as a chaplain, because there was a sense of people understood who he was, people would talk to him, and that was helpful in that situation. You would never have seen him wearing it at any other point in his life. He wouldn't go to the shops in it, he wouldn't go and socialise in it, because he wasn't defined by it.
Yeah.
I don't get why vicars have to wear it all the time. Why? Go on.
I don't know the answer. I don't wear a dog collar because I don't want to be seen as different. I think that definition of being slightly obscure and it's not me. And I fundamentally believe that all Christians are equal, and that any person who works for the church is as fallible and as holy as anybody who follows Christ. That there is no grading, and to me, a dog collar is I don't identify as a clergy. I don't use the term reverend. I just don't.
So someone asks you what you do, what do you say?
I say I'm a Baptist minister.
Okay.
At the moment, I say that, and the tribe I want to identify by using that phrase is I want to identify with, I hope, the most famous Baptist minister is Martin Luther King. And that's the only way I want to identify with that tribe, with Martin Luther King. Whether that's increasingly useful as a definition, but I don't like being asked what you do as a way of... I don't like those questions. What do you do? I don't like the question, are you married? Do you have children? All of those things are defining you in a way that they are all true of me, and I'm not ashamed of them, but they're not really what makes me tick. They're not really the most important things in my life. Family and everything is very, very important. Being a Baptist minister is very, very important, but there's something more important than all of that.
I sometimes find it's a good into a conversation. So I was giving blood yesterday. I wasn't giving blood. I was having a blood test, and lovely nurse, absolutely brilliant, was having trouble getting blood out of me. So she was like trying this side, and she was trying to distract me because I'm terrible with needles, and it was going on for a very long time. And she goes, "Oh, it's coming out, but very, very slowly. We're going to be a while." So she goes, "What do you do?" And so I said, I work at the Baptist church in Sutton. Do you know the one? It's opposite McDonald's. Oh, I know that. My children used to go to playgroup there. Absolutely brilliant. Loved it. So we've got this in of a conversation. So I quite like that. I don't want to be defined by it. No. But when someone's pulling blood out of my arm and it's coming at 1 centimetre an hour, it's quite helpful to have a distraction and to talk about it.
Yeah, it is quite helpful that anybody in the community who knows me, knows what I do. They have certain expectations, and some of that's quite good for me, some of that's quite a challenge. I remember a situation a few years ago where one of my sons was playing football, and there'd been some incidents with parents who were being abusive, and there was a memo went round saying that parents mustn't shout and argue, and there was a big joke that was all, "Yeah, Donald, yeah, your language is unacceptable." And it was like, it was fun because everybody knew that it wasn't me. Because he's the Baptist minister, he wouldn't be doing it. But it's a label that's not, it's not what I want to really say is the most important thing about me, but it's a helpful thing at times.
I was looking at Andrew Mitchell's Facebook page. He's our local MP. And I was looking at some of his old videos, and there's a video of you and him. So he's like in a really smart suit, and you're sitting on some steps next to him in your jeans, and you've got like your best but your worst jacket on and stuff, Reverend Donald Campbell. And you look at that and you just go against all stereotypes of what people think a vicar is. It just made me chuckle because he's so smart and pristine and there's you. And I think that's good.
And part of our identity is our appearance, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But again, I don't want that to be the thing that I think matters. What do I look like? I famously don't really care what I'm wearing, and my collar will be up all the time, and the number of videos I've made where things are dishevelled because it's not my identity, what I look like.
I mean, mine, it is obviously. I make a real effort with my hair and makeup and everything else. That's one of the things I love about our church, that there's a sense of you don't have to pretend to be what you're not. And the church somehow, I don't know how, accepts us the way that we are and are happy. Because we're just real. This is us. This is who we are. It's like questions of life. We don't pretend to have all the answers. We don't pretend to be the best Christians, but we're giving it a good shot. And we're trying to go for it. And we're trying to be real about our experiences and our mistakes and learning from them. So we have all of these things that other people look at, so they could say that you're a vicar. They could say that you're a dad, that you're a husband, that you're a dog owner, that you support a rubbish football team. You know,
top of the league.
You're known for all of those things, aren't you?
Yep.
You know, if you were to ask someone in our church, tell me about Donald, they would reel off all of those things. But I suspect as well they would reel off the fact that 2 of your favourite words are grace and mercy, because that's been something that you have said and preached and have lived out for as long as I've been here. That's kind of been not your mission statement, because we have a different mission statement, but something that you live by and you act with integrity over. And that's part of your faith, and that's part of what defines you. So to talk more about that then. So you don't want to be defined by all of those things. They're true. Talk about your faith and the place that has.
So